we're in Maria Theresa Platz, just off of the Ringstrasse, and I'm standing in front of a wonderful monument to Empress Maria Theresa. This square, dedicated to Maria Theresa, was established alongside the glorious Ringstrasse, and the monument stands between two wonderful museums, the Kunsthistorisches Museum, the Art History Museum, and the Naturhistorisches Museum, the Natural History Museum. And the collections in both are amazing because they're the collections of the Habsburgs, and absolutely marvelous collections. Now, Maria Theresa is a remarkable character and played a remarkable role in history. She was born in 1717 to Charles VI, the Holy Roman Emperor, and when she was 23, Charles VI died. She was the only heir. There were no male heirs in line. At that moment, she had to struggle as a 23-year-old to hold on to her rights and to her throne, because it was argued that a male had to succeed the throne. And there ensued the War of Austrian Succession, but Maria Theresa prevailed. In 1736, she had married Francis of Lorraine, and in 1745, it was finalized that the Prince Francis would become the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, and Maria Theresa would be the Empress of the Holy Roman Empire. And Maria Theresa, in her own right, would remain the lead of all of the holdings of the Habsburgs, the Archduchess of the Habsburg lands. And she was an absolutely formidable figure. The idea was that she would co-rule with her husband, Francis, whom she loved, and her son, Joseph II, who would be regent, and that the three would co-rule. In fact, Maria Theresa governed. She was the Empress of the Holy Roman Empire, and she was the leader of the Habsburg house, and even as her son grew, she ruled until her death in 1780. Now, this was a remarkable period, and she and her son Joseph II were remarkable Habsburg leaders, because the mid-18th century was the high age of Enlightenment. This was the period in which reason and the idea of reason in the structuring of governance swept the intellectual scene of Europe. The Enlightenment movement is a movement that is trans-European, and in fact it was that interconnectedness across Europe with the leading thinkers, philosophers, scholars, scientists writing to each other in what became known as the Republic of Letters that made the Enlightenment so remarkable. There's no absolutely clear moment of the start of the Enlightenment, but I think it's fair to put Francis Bacon at the start, because it was Francis Bacon who said, knowledge is power, and our capacity to gain knowledge, to read the book of nature, would empower humanity to improve itself in very practical ways. And Bacon helped to initiate the scientific revolution, the call for reason as the center of human affairs. Descartes soon followed. In 1637, Descartes famously said, "Cogito ergo sum," I think, therefore I am, trying to find the foundations for core beliefs about nature, starting with his own thought. And in 1687, one of the most remarkable and glorious achievements of the human intellect in all of human history, the Principia Mathematica of Isaac Newton, established the Newtonian universe. So this indeed was the age of science, and increasingly it was hoped among the philosophers of the day that it would be the age of reason. In the 18th century, in the 1700s, leading thinkers in England, such as David Hume and Adam Smith, in France, such as Rousseau and Montesquieu, and Voltaire, and thinkers and philosophers across Europe propelled the idea of a reason-based society in which governance itself, in which the political institutions were increasingly seen as human-made and as subject to improvement and as necessarily to be designed for the human good. At least that was the idea of the social contract of Rousseau, the idea of Adam Smith in his world of commerce that he set forth in The Wealth of Nations. Now, Maria Theresa and her son Joseph II were monarchs that imbibed this idea of enlightenment, and their concept was that the Habsburg lands and the Holy Roman Empire should indeed be reformed along the lines of reason. Maria Theresa initiated the process, and Joseph II remarkably carried it forward. Some of the early reforms were to open up the arts to society, and Maria Theresa initiated the opening of public galleries of the collections of the Habsburgs for the public to see and to absorb the culture. And another major theme of the Enlightenment era was the spread of education, an area where Maria Theresa was deeply concerned and invested, and primary education began to spread under her rule. She also was a great patron of the arts, and indeed one of the most famous moments of her life and famous moments of the life of the arts was when 6-year-old Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart played for the Empress in 1762 in Schönbrunn Palace, in the Summer Palace, and gave a wonderful performance as he sat on books to raise him so that he could reach the piano. And at the end of this genius's performance at age 6, he famously jumped into the lap of the Empress and gave her a big hug and smack on the cheek, a big kiss on the cheek. And the Empress returned with a hug and delighted everybody till now with this wonderful story. She became a patron of Mozart throughout his all too brief career, but stunning life in Vienna. Maria Theresa governed really mostly by herself as her son Joseph II grew. In 1780, Maria Theresa died, and Joseph II became the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. In fact, he was emperor in name, but not emperor in power. He became emperor in fact in 1780. And in 1781, he issued 2 proclamations that epitomize the age of enlightenment. One was the Edict of Toleration, which established a regime of tolerance for different religions, legalized the Jewish faith within this Catholic kingdom, enabled people to practice according to their conscience. And the other was the 1781 patent that essentially ended serfdom in the Habsburg lands. Two massive breakthroughs in a reason-based, just society. As so often happens with reforms, there was a lot of tension and a lot of pushback. Joseph II did not have an easy time with the reforms. The large landowners were not happy with the loss of their rights over the serfs and with other reforms that were being implemented. So it was a tumultuous period. And it was not a democratic reign. This was enlightened absolutism. Joseph ruled, he knew what was best, he reasoned it out, and he imposed it. And so this is a special kind of Enlightenment rule. Enlightenment together with absolutism. But the tremendous advances in the arts, in sciences, in education, in the public engagement in society, in the role of reason were undoubted. And until this day, Maria Theresa and her son are regarded as two of the greatest leaders in the 1,000-year history of this country. And so it's not a surprise that she sits there regally. She holds in her hand not only the scepter of power, but a document, the Pragmatic Sanction, which in 1713 made clear by Charles IV that a daughter could inherit the Habsburg lands in their entirety. And she is clasping the Pragmatic Sanction, and she held on, she pushed her way, she maintained the power, and she introduced these massive reforms. And it's so fitting that she sits in this regal way with her advisors, her military leaders, her doctors, the great composers, all around her in this celebration of the age of enlightenment. I want us to go have a quick look at one side of this, a special treat when we look to the side of this monument. Let's go have a look.